Hello and welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Marin and today we are going to do another reading vlog. So this time I am going to be reading the May Literally Dead book club pick in this vlog. If you watched my reading recap, which I'll link up above for April, you'll know that I finally caught up on the Literally Dead book club. I was behind because the first book that they selected for, or that Kayla selected for February, was the third Finley Donovan book, and I had not read any of them. So I have been trying to play catch up, but we are back on track. So in this vlog, we're going to tackle May's pick, which is this one right here, Whisper Down the Lane by Clay McLeod Chapman. This is a horror novel, I believe, that surrounds kind of the 80s satanic panic when people were looking at like the music scene and blaming that on what was going on. So I'll read the back. It just says, the satanic panic era began with a little white lie. All Sean had to do was tell Mom exactly what she needed to hear. A game, he thought. That's all this is. Just a game. And the name of this game was to say the right thing. Figure out the secret message that protected Mom, the meaning hidden within the words that would defend them both. The truth. So that's a little blurb on the back. So I am going to tackle this one over the weekend. Today is Saturday, May 13th. This book does have 294 pages, so not a ton. And it's got, you know, decent spacing, things like that. So I feel like getting through it this weekend should be possible, but if not, I'll carry it over into Monday and finish it then. But yes, I thought it would be fun to vlog this kind of live and let you know my feelings on it. And then at the end of this video, I am going to rank the 4 books that I have now read for the Literally Dead book club. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do in this vlog. So hopefully you will enjoy. It is Saturday, as I mentioned. It's almost 2 o'clock. I have had a very lazy morning. I put away some laundry and that's literally it. So we're gonna take it and be very chill today because I definitely need a day of my weekend just to kind of chill and not do much of anything. Tomorrow I will run my errands that I need to run for the next week, and that's how it's gonna go. It is storming outside, so if you can hear the thunder, apologies. But yes, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna read Whisper Down the Lane. This will be the first book that I have ever read by this author. This is an older book. I believe this came out in 2021, so it's a couple years old. This author does have a new book coming out either this year or next year, but obviously we will see if I want to read that one based on how I feel about this one. I think this is like a horror book, horror/thriller maybe. I feel like it's a horror, and I don't think I've ever vlogged a horror book before, so let's go ahead and get into it. Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Time for a reading update. So before I get into the book that I'm actually reading for this vlog, I wanted to chat about the book that I am currently listening to, which is The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. So this is my current audiobook. This is a book on my 23 and 2023 list. I have owned this probably since it came out in paperback, which was probably 2004, 2005, something along those lines. And I am 29% of the way through, just starting part 2. So this is detailing their creation of the Chicago World's Fair and then a serial killer who is like killing people at the same time as the fair. So we have like kind of flipping points of view between the architects of the fair and then the serial killer. And I don't have too terribly much to say about it yet because we're still kind of getting into the setup. But that is the audiobook I'm listening to. And actually, I feel like the quote at the end, it says, this is at the end of part 1, I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing. And I feel like that quote was in this book. Or am I like, I've been reading a lot of thrillers and stuff, so I don't know if the quote from here is something that I read in here just yesterday, or if it's in like another book that I just read, because I also just finished The Villa by Rachel Hawkins, so maybe the quote was in there. I honestly can't remember. But yeah, it definitely like struck a chord. I've heard it somewhere. So anyway, now let's talk about this one. So last night I did get to page 102, and this book is also flipping back and forth between points of view. So we have Sean, who is a 5-year-old boy, and then we have Richard, who is the adult in the parts that are labeled 2013. So Sean is 1982, I believe. Yep, 1982. And then Richard is 2013. So those are the two viewpoints that we're switching back and forth between. I did not realize that the setup for this book was going to be based on a lie that Sean tells regarding his teacher. And so that kind of threw me. I wasn't expecting that, but that is essentially how the lie that I mentioned, like from the synopsis, comes into play. So a little bit jarring because I wasn't expecting that to be like the impetus for the story. Don't really know how I feel about that yet as a teacher. So yeah, but so far this one's definitely got some unsettling vibes. This is not reading as a horror to me necessarily. There is like some body horror type things that are mentioned in terms of a poor rabbit. So FYI, if you're going to read this, there is a murdered pet rabbit, like straight out the gates in this book. And then of course there's the aforementioned teacher being blamed for things that at least I'm assuming the teacher did not actually do. So definitely some things to take into consideration if you're going to read this one. As I said, the teacher side note threw me quite a bit. I'm not really sure what I think about this. I don't love Richard as a main character. Sean is obviously a 5-year-old boy, so there's a lot going into that. He is really trying to do what he thinks his mom wants him to do and give her the answers that he thinks she wants him to give her. So there's just a lot going on in here, and 100 pages in, I'm still not really sure what my thoughts are on it. So let's talk about my goal for today. I am hoping to read to page 200 today. We're actually page 199 technically, and we'll go from there. I might read a little bit further. We'll just play it by ear, but I do not think I'm going to finish this. I think this is a book that I need to go ahead and like take in a little bit of a slower pace rather than trying to read through it in a whole in just one weekend. So this will probably carry over into Monday, possibly Tuesday, but I am going to finish this in this vlog. So that's kind of where I stand right now. I don't really have any thoughts. There's definitely some things that I don't love about it, some things that kind of took me by surprise. And I'm also wanting to do a little bit of research. So I flipped to the back, not spoilers, but just the bibliography, I guess, or the reader's group guide. So it's got like questions at the end, and it mentions that this book is based on a true crime event known as the McMartin preschool trial. So I kind of want to read that just to like get the setting, because this was a story that took place in 1982. That's the year I was born, so obviously I do not remember anything because I was way too little. So I want to read that today. I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere, maybe even Wikipedia, and just get like a general background for this, and then maybe that will help me place the book within its actual time period. So that's my thoughts on that. Not a whole lot to say as of yet. Some things I don't love. This is reading more as like a mystery thriller right now with some horror aspects, so we'll just see how it's going to play out. Now, I did go to Target today. It is Mother's Day, so happy belated Mother's Day to any moms out there. I did pick my mom up a new coffee mug. She loves coffee mugs, and some flowers and a card, so took care of her. And then I also picked up a couple of makeup things. So I picked up this Neutrogena matte primer and serum shine control stuff. My skin has been incredibly oily like the last couple of weeks. My makeup is not sitting very well on it, so I picked that up to see if that might help a little bit. I also picked up this setting powder, which I'm going to combine with the one that I currently have because that one is not mattifying enough, and I'm hoping it will help. And then I did pick up two makeup brushes. One is a angled liner brush, if you can see, there you go. And then the other one is like a flat top concealer brush. So that was my little Target haul. And now we're going to get back to reading and probably playing some more Disney Dreamlight Valley, which I did a lot of yesterday. So that's what's on the agenda. Let's go ahead and do some reading. Hey y'all, it's 8 o'clock. I'm back with a reading update, and I am currently on page 219. That's like 71-ish% of the story. So I have about this much left. Now some of this at the end is like the reader's guide questions and a bibliography, but yeah, so we're definitely in the home stretch of this book. Now, my feelings about this have not really changed necessarily. I don't love the main character, Richard. We now know how the two points of view are linked, and we're kind of understanding what's going on in the story. That being said, there's just still a lot about this that doesn't sit super well with me, not because of how it's written or like what the message is, but just like what the storyline is. So as I mentioned, there is a child who makes a false accusation against a teacher, and it really causes just a huge amount of things to happen as a result. And there's talk of like teachers indoctrinating their students, in this case in like satanic rituals, but I feel like it's just a little too apt with what's going on right now in the US regarding more conservative groups and their stance on teachers. It's led to things like parents wanting to control the curriculum that's being taught, wanting to cut out certain aspects of our country's history that they don't want their children to learn about. It goes down to banning of books, banning of topics. We've had everything going on in Florida with the Don't Say Gay law and the subsequent amount of book bans that have taken place specifically in Florida. I am not in Florida, I'm in Missouri. It is another conservative state that's got its own kind of stuff trying to be passed through our state government. So a lot of this is just kind of like weighing a bit heavily on me as I read this book. So I'm having a hard time seeing like the entertainment factor of this because it's all just hitting slightly too close to home. So because of that, I can't say that I'm enjoying this book at all. I will say this is clearly a psychological horror book, so I understand why it's classed as horror. That became much more obvious as things against Richard kind of start ramping up, and I am curious to see how the story is going to end. But again, this is just a little much for me in my current job position, my thoughts on the education system, my thoughts on parents' opinion of teachers right now. And don't get me wrong, I know that the vast majority of people know exactly how hard our jobs are as teachers. They support us. They want what's best for us. But there is that small minority, that very loud small minority that is really doing some serious harm to our profession. And this book is just kind of driving all of that a little bit more home than I was really wanting from a book that I wanted to read for enjoyment. So, yeah, not enjoying it. I will say it's well researched, especially now that I read up on some of the Satanic Panic stuff, and particularly the preschool trial that this was based on. There are a ton of similarities between that trial and this book. That was obviously his inspiration for this book. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's a bit much for me. So yeah, not my favorite thing that I've read, but it's well written. So, you know, it's got that going for it. It's just this subject matter is hard for me to read personally. So I am not sure how much more I will read tonight. As I said, it's already 8 o'clock. I do want to play a little bit more of Dreamlight Valley. I am trying to finish up the Star Path that they've got going on, and it ends either Monday or Tuesday. So I've got a little bit more work to do with that. And I think I'm kind of done with this for tonight. This is definitely not one that I can read huge chunks of and just go straight through. As I said, it's just uncomfortable for me to read about personally. We've also had another instance of animal cruelty slash death. The death itself is not talked about, but it's definitely talked about enough in a way that you are well aware of what happened, and it's quite grisly in its detail of the aftermath. So definitely some things to keep in mind if you're going to read this one. But yeah, it's 8:07 now. I'm going to stop talking. I will possibly read a little bit more tonight, but more than likely it's actually going to be tomorrow, and then I'll come on and close out the vlog. So I think I've had enough of Whisper Down the Lane for today. Again, this is not a knock against the book itself or the author. This is just the subject matter that is particularly difficult for me to engage with. So, time to log off of this one. Log off. Time to stop reading this one for tonight and do something a little bit more lighthearted, I think. Hello everyone, happy Wednesday. It is 3 days after the last footage that you just saw, but I have finished Whisper Down the Lane. I actually finished it yesterday. Monday, I just was not in the right headspace to be reading this book or any book really, so all I did was watch YouTube videos and then I played some Dreamlight Valley. That was what my Monday night consisted of, but I did finish this last night. So my feelings since the last time I talked to you have not changed. I'm going to give this one 3 stars. This book is very well written. There is a nice suspenseful quality to the writing, and it kept me on the edge of my seat. I've already talked about how the plot itself was not my favorite. The whole storyline involving Sean making the false accusation against his teacher and then the fallout from that just hits a little too close to home, as I'd mentioned, with everything going on right now in the educational world in the United States. I will say the ending, personally, I didn't see that coming. So the person who was responsible, so to speak, I didn't see that coming, maybe just because I wasn't paying close enough attention. I don't know. A lot of people are saying they saw it coming. I personally did not. And then there is an explanation at the end that I also was a little surprised by. So there are definitely some nice twists and turns. There's some revelations that kind of take you aback a little bit. The writing is very good, as I mentioned. I just personally didn't jive with the actual plot. So because of that, I'm giving this 3 stars, but that's not a knock on the writing. I would be interested in reading something else by this author. It's just that this story itself was not my favorite. So 3 stars, 4 for like the story, the writing, all of that, 2 for the plot, I guess. Even it out to make 3. But yeah, so this one's done. Now let's talk about the Literally Dead book club pick so far this year. So February's pick was the 3rd Finlay Donovan book by El Casamano. Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun. I gave that one 4 stars. March's pick was The Spite House by Johnny Compton. I gave that one 3.5 stars. April's pick was The Riding Retreat by Julia Bartz. I did not like that one at all. Really, I gave it 2 stars. And then this one is a 3. So if we're ranking them, it would be Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun, The Spite House, Whisper Down the Lane, The Riding Retreat. So that's where I'm sitting right now. I'm curious to see how the other books go. She's announced the next two, I think. She's announced the next 2, I think, for June and July. Maybe the 3rd. I don't remember. I put them all on my Goodreads to read list, but I can't remember how many she's announced. So the next one is a translated book, originally released in Japan, I believe. So I'm going to be reading that one in June, and we will see if that one can unseat the 3rd Finley Donovan book in terms of being my favorite. But yeah, 3 stars for this one. I would recommend it, but do keep in mind what the book's about. As I mentioned, kind of graphic depictions of violence against animals in terms of the aftermath of that violence, and obviously the whole sexual abuse plot line with the teacher and the student that is false but still described in the book. So keep that in mind. If you're curious about the McMartin preschool trial, which is what this book is based on, I'll link the Wikipedia page down below. Gave me a lot of information, definitely where this book comes from. So that's kind of like the background if you're interested. So yeah, that's gonna bring this vlog to a close. I didn't do a whole lot except read, so apologies for that. My weekends tend to be very, very lazy, and I didn't get a ton of B-roll footage. I just didn't do that, so sorry. Hopefully you still liked hearing my thoughts on this nonetheless, and if you have read this, let me know what you think, especially if you're a teacher, because I would be curious if it kind of hit you the same way that it hit me. So anyway, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel if you would like to see more from me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.